In this video, I'm going to tell you what is better, podcasting or YouTube. Here we go. Hey everyone, welcome back. I am obsessed with content creation. Many of you are obsessed with content creation or consuming content just like me. And if you haven't started YouTube or if you hadn't started creating for a podcast, then you might have the question like, what is it that's best for me? Now this might be a two-part video, but we'll see. But I want to be able to break it down and kind of just try and give you the most unbiased and objective opinion I can on certain areas when it comes to these platforms and these mediums. Now, the first thing you need to consider is this before we even start, is that while podcasting is audio only, it doesn't mean there's not a video component. So, in that regard, there is going to be similarities between YouTube, which is obviously primarily visual. So keep that in mind. But the first area we are going to cover is effort. So everyone wants to know how much effort is required for both. Well, look, I'm telling you as someone who is a podcaster, okay, I have 2 top 100 podcasts. I have another podcast that's launching. I have a podcast production agency and video production agency. Podcasting and YouTube are pretty damn similar. I would say it's actually a tie. Now, when you have YouTube, you have to have a content strategy. You have to know what you're going to be, making videos about. You have to get the thumbnails. You have to record the videos. You have to edit them. You have to publish them. You have to set them up. You have to put a description. Well, guess what? On the podcasting side, you can't just do a podcast about nothing either, and you can't just wing it. I have clients who wing it and it doesn't work well. You actually have to have a strategy just as much, and then you have to have it edited. You have to set up the time to actually batch record. You have to get show notes. You have to have descriptions. You have to get links. They're really similar. YouTube is a beast, but so is podcasting, so I'm playing with fire here trying to do both. So what I would say to you in terms of effort is there's not going to be a significant difference, and just because if you choose not to have a podcast with video doesn't mean that you're actually going to come out of that unscathed, not having to put in a ton of time. Pod fade is a very real term, and it means when people usually stop podcasting. That's about 8 episodes in. Why? Just like YouTube, they don't see the results they want yet. They expected some sort of incredible explosion and subscribers and followers and money and all these different things, but it's not like that. They are both a long game, and the effort has to be consistent and steady. So it is an absolute tie in my opinion, believe it or not. Number 2 would be simplicity of kind of setting it up. I would actually say YouTube has the upper hand here because I've made plenty of YouTube videos with my phone, AirPods, and a selfie stick. That's it. Okay, that's really it. But because it's audio only for a podcast, you actually have to pay attention to the audio quality. I know some really good podcasters don't have amazing podcast audio quality, but that's because the content is so good that it doesn't necessarily need to be amazing. But think of the top podcasters they got the right stuff and it sounds freaking pristine. So for you to be on the go and having all the distractions and the noise, like even right now in my office, it's driving me freaking crazy that I know the sound's bouncing, and it's because I haven't put up these panels that I just got recently. But I still need to bang this content out. But you need the mic, you need to set up a distribution platform. You don't need to do that on YouTube. YouTube is a distribution platform because YouTube is a single point where people are going to come to look to YouTube. But for a podcast, to set up your distribution, you got to get to Spotify, you got to get to Apple, you got to get to all these places. Now, my service, which is Captivate, and I'll link down below if you're ever interested in them using them as a hosting site. Yes, I'm an affiliate. They have kind of a single click where once you set it up, you're going to be able to distribute it everywhere. But just like YouTube, obviously, like the uploading sequence, the downloading sequence, the editing, which I already kind of talked about, is all things that need to happen. Now, you probably not only need recording equipment, but you probably want recording software. There's all these intangibles when it comes to sound, which we're very, very sensitive to sound. We're so much more forgiving of visual things. When it comes to sound, it's not necessarily the same way. So the simplicity of setup is not necessarily that easy. You have to think about cover art. You have to think about how often you want to release an episode. You have to think about how you're going to promote it. I mean, there's so many factors. I feel like the simplicity of setup for YouTube is easy. You already have a Gmail account? Well, look, YouTube is owned by Google. So there you go. You pretty much already have a YouTube channel. You could name it. You could put your description. You can start uploading whenever you want, put a title. It could choose a thumbnail for you, and that's it. When it comes to podcasting, it's a little bit different. If you have an interview series, then definitely simplicity is not going to be easier, because then all of a sudden you're going to put yourself in a position where you have to be finding and seeking out guests who are going to help bring your podcast to the next level. They have to be respectable. You have to vet them. There's all kinds of factors when it comes to setup. You have to choose your category, explicit language, yes or no. What kind of music do you want? Look, the list goes on. So I'm going to tell you this straight up. YouTube, for simplicity of setup, by far is going to be a lot easier. All that stuff on the podcast side is not robust, but it's a lot of administrative, boring bullshit. And then once you get past that, then you're going to run into what I talked about earlier, which is the effort, and the effort to stay consistent there is going to be pretty freaking difficult. So there you go. So number 3 is, that was a perfect segue into consistency. this, in my opinion, I think podcasting is going to have the upper hand here for consistency, even though I know what I mentioned about having pod fade after 8 episodes. Batching episodes for a podcast, especially if you have no video, if I had this off and I just was talking into the mic, I could just be free. Now, people are so unbelievably self-conscious about being on camera and making video and keeping people's attention. Everyone knows when it comes to what we watch that there is a lot of competition and shorter is better. And you are asking people to consume long form content on YouTube. You can't watch YouTube when I guess you could watch it when you're on the treadmill. That's not an awesome experience, but you can't watch it when you're driving. You can't actually multitask and do other things on your phone when YouTube is playing if you are watching a video. For podcasting, it is easy for audience consumption, which is a huge part to your ability to be consistent. If you know there's not that component, even if you do have the video component, it doesn't matter. Sitting down for 5 to 10 minutes to record very well thought out episodes by pressing record and pressing stop and then uploading it or having it edited for you by hiring people like us, then you're going to be on your way. But it's just not nearly as difficult, in my opinion, to stay consistent because YouTube requires an enormous amount of kind of gaining attention and retaining attention. You know, there's going to be a dip. Like, what are you doing constantly on YouTube in your videos to retain attention? You have to get creative, and it's just too easy for you to start thinking of so many different avenues and things that you could use. Do I need B-roll? Do I need awesome transitions? Do I need another camera? Do I need to split this? Do I need to split that? Like, I mean, there's just so many things visually that we want to stimulate us that all kind of disappears on the podcast side because I could do it passively. Your people who you want to listen can listen passively when they're mowing the lawn, when they're at the gym, when they're on the treadmill, when they're cleaning the house. It doesn't matter. It's so much easier to consume. And if you know that, you'll probably have a chance to kind of move along faster and get growth a little bit faster as well. And if that happens, then you're going to continue to make episodes. But I believe if I could come into this office and I didn't have to record and I just press record just for this on the microphone to make a few podcast episodes, I believe it's far easier to stay consistent. The only time we run out of consistency really becomes a problem is if you become infatuated with this imaginative result that you think is going to happen overnight. 2, like I mentioned, if you have an interview series and you're running out of guests. Or 3, if you're just so niche that you feel like you're going to run out of topics, which is always a way to get out of that. I believe I have a video on how to never run out of content ideas, but we'll leave it there. And last but not least is going to be monies. Everyone wants to know about money. If I'm going to be doing this, what is the opportunity cost? What is the financial return I could get from putting all this effort into creating content on these 2 different mediums? Here's what I will say. I have not blown up on YouTube. I am nothing on YouTube, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to try. I do believe in consistency and I do believe in effort and I do believe in growth, that at some point I will be able to recognize what the audience wants, give them more of that without sacrificing who I am and making good, high quality, valuable content. It's going to take a long time and I've committed to that. I am doing 12 months, 3 videos a week. And if at the end of that 12 months, nothing's popping off, then I could reevaluate things, but it's non-negotiable. I've done it before where I started out and just stopped. I'm not letting that happen. And the reason is there is the ability to monetize. If I'm able to build a community, if I'm able to kind of garner all those viewers, if I'm able to garner views from those viewers, then yeah, if I meet the YouTube requirements, then I could be in the YouTube partner program and then I could monetize. Now, obviously your videos need to be seen millions of times to really make a kind of career out of it or to go full-time YouTube and make a lot of money out of it. But obviously there's lateral things. There's brand deals, there's sponsorships, there's ads. I mean, Google AdSense. I mean, all these different avenues where if once you hit it and you have turned monetization on, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you there. And it seems a little simple if you can just grind it out until that point where you meet the requirements and you've started to garner an audience that is actually going to follow you and the subscribers keep going up and up and up. Now on the podcast side, like I could help you monetize your podcast. I've monetized all my podcasts at this point, and I believe monetization is easy, but not by that traditional sponsor model, which goes by CPMs, which is cost per mil. Meaning, depending on how many downloads I have, per 1,000 downloads, a traditional sponsor is going to be like, hey, we'll give you this much. And it's usually really freaking shitty, to be completely honest. For all the effort that goes into podcasting, I believe it's just chump change and it's just nonsense. However, you can and you will monetize if you have a very specific audience. Let me be completely hypothetical so I don't use my example. If I am someone who does tutorials for the LSATs, help people figure out very specific questions, help people mentally prepare for the exam to get into law school that you need to take, then yeah, there might be a college that is interested in that, okay? That is trying to boost their law school admissions certifications. There might be a company that offers online tutorial services as well. That might be a good strategic partnership for you. There might be a sister company that helps people pass the bar exam, not just the LSATs, is like the next echelon, right? So depending on your audience, and let's just call that audience aspiring law school students, that's very specific. And that's really, really going to be appealing to some of these people out there, to some of these potential sponsors. I am not saying traditional sponsors. I'm saying non-traditional sponsors, which means you know these people exist out there. You potentially use their product. You might already be an affiliate. You might already use their service, and you might be an affiliate for that service, whatever. But you can approach them and say, hey, my name's Rich. I help people with the LSATs. I get maybe 500 downloads a month, but it is a very niche audience. They're very engaged. I've gotten really good feedback. We got some good reviews. We have something good going on here. Depending on the customer lifetime value for you, I think this might be a good opportunity for you to get in front of my audience. And then you could test something out and you will gain so much more. So if the customer lifetime value of someone who is a partner of yours is, I don't know, $20,000 over the course of a year, that's an easy way to get $1,000 an episode or something along those lines for a sponsorship or to insert their name. So monetization on the podcast side is made murky, strange, and cheap by everyone in the podcast industry. And I am trying to be like, I'm not playing that freaking game. I will never just have some fucking mattress firm or some mattress company be a sponsor for me because I don't care about their mattress. What I want to help people do is start their own businesses. So maybe it would make sense for me to be partners with or have a sponsor that's in accounting, because I know startups always get accounting backwards and fucked up and they pay attention before it's too late. And maybe there's a system that I use out there that we use that is a really easy, user-friendly system that's going to help people keep their books in order. So that way, when they go to turn in their things to their accountant or they go to do their taxes at the end of the year, they are not absolutely shocked and appalled by all the mistakes they made. That would make sense. So maybe I'm helping people quit their jobs. And if I'm helping people quit their jobs, then maybe I'm part of a networking group that is always looking for assistance in their startups. And this is going to be a really good opportunity for people who want to leave their jobs to kind of get that entrepreneur experience to determine if they want to be an entrepreneur or not. And maybe even if I had very, very few people listening to my podcast, maybe that value is incredibly worth it just for brand awareness for the potential sponsor. And they'll say, yeah, we'll do $2,000 a month. Now for podcasts, you also have the opportunity to do pre-roll, which is like before I start the podcast, in the middle of the podcast is mid-roll, and then at the end post-roll, essentially, where I'm done with the episode or the interview or whatever it is, and then we could have a sponsor there. So you can monetize there. It seems like it's going to be easier to do on YouTube. So I'm going to say the ability to make a lot of money is far more on the YouTube side, just from what I've seen and the people that I know. But on the podcast side, it's nothing to laugh at or to sneer at. There's a lot of money to be made on the podcast side, and I've made plenty on it as well. And now I just want to kind of combine the two. So as far as monetization, I think YouTube's going to get the W, but don't sleep on podcasting as a way to make it happen. So there you have it. I believe YouTube has a much bigger upside, even though I have experienced so much growth and so many great things on the podcasting space. I now know that there's an opportunity for me here on the YouTube side. So I think YouTube is something that you absolutely need to pay attention to, but you also need to acknowledge the fact that while it can appear simple, consistency is going to be really, really difficult, and you are not going to want to put your face in the camera, or you're not going to want to get that editor, or you're just going to want to spice things up so much, it's going to seem really, really daunting. But YouTube has the opportunity to really help with your brand, to really help with monetization, to really help with your visibility. Podcasting is a little bit different, but I have endured a lot of success, and it's only just beginning. So don't count it out. But right now, at the end of the day, if I were going to say there was more upside to the other, it would be YouTube.